Hi, I'm Peg Miller, and I worked at Options Recovery Services from 1999 through 20. I remember the day Tom Gorham, the then executive director, called me saying, "I've found the next executive director of Options Recovery Services." Tom had known Justin Phillips for 15 years as a mentor. Justin began and ran Alameda County's first detox center, Cherry Hill, which serves 10,000 clients a year. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, and with years of experience with the homeless and addicted population in Alameda County, which is it's in California, Berkeley, Oakland. Justin jumped in, transforming the entire culture of options, expanding services in Alameda County, and expanding into Contra Costa County. He taught motivational interviewing to the men and women in the Occupational Mentor Certification program, a transformational program in California prisons, which trains lifers to be certified drug and alcohol counselors. You can see the film, The 50, on Amazon Prime. It's about the first 50 men trained at Solano Prison in 2008 to 2009. Justin loves and empowers everyone he interacts with. He is the one who created the Academy of Hope, where men from the OMCP can transition from prison into a glorious life of freedom and service. Because of his guidance, it's the kind of place every returning citizen should have. A brotherhood where each person supports and is supported to transition back to society. And he just got married. Congratulations. And thank you for speaking here today. And thank you, Justin, for all the differences you make in the world. Please join me in welcoming Justin Phillips, the Executive Director of Options Recovery Services in Berkeley, California.
Thank you so much, Peg, and thank you, Mark, and everyone who's been a part of this Prisons to Partnership event. I've been on since this morning, and I've just been so inspired to hear so much innovation and creativity and just wonderfulness. A few of the first few speakers were my California colleagues and echoed some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. But I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for such a warm introduction. I want to highlight a couple of things that were said previously that I'm going to echo. One of them is creativity. One of the things that was really shining out to me, even just in the first couple hours, is just, again, how when people who are incarcerated are allowed to come out into the community, their creativity can blossom. And what we see is that that's suppressed a lot of times inside. And when they get out, it just kind of comes out like a machine and it just creates these beautiful things for the world. And so I just want to echo that already in California time, it's only about 10:50, and we've already seen many examples of that. So thank you. The second thing I want to mention is there has been constant reference to volunteering and just contributing to the men and women inside the prison system. The reentry system that I'm going to talk about, we have in Northern California. What Peg didn't mention is that she actually has volunteered for over 30 years as a marriage and family therapist and continues to volunteer with the men and women who are coming out of the institutions and helping them transition back into society. So in terms of volunteerism on a career scale, I think Peg gets the award for the most volunteer hours. So thank you, Peg, and thank you for the kind words that you said. I'm going to be the first person, I think, at the conference to bring in the conversation of addiction and drugs in the prisons and how that plays a role in things. A lot of times, we in society tend to focus on mental illness, and drugs and alcohol kind of fall into that in different categories of medical science and other ways. But I, as a licensed marriage and family therapist and master addiction counselor, I'm also a person in recovery. I'm a person in recovery from substances. I'm a person in recovery from criminal activity. I'm a person in recovery from depression. I'm a person in recovery from PTSD, from combat overseas. I have a long history, just like many of you that are out there listening and participating today. I currently serve as the executive director, as Peg mentioned, for an agency called Options Recovery Services. We're a contractor for California, the state of California, Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, specifically the Department of Rehabilitation, to be able to go into 7 California state prisons and train, educate, provide internship and state certified testing for people who have life sentences located throughout California who qualify for the program. We get about 10,000 applications a year. We're only allowed to select about 250 of those applications. These are people, men and women, that we have 6 men's prisons, 1 women's prison, CCWF, which was mentioned previously. Because of the amount of women in the incarcerated system in California, we don't have as many programs for women, but that's solely based on numbers, not gender. We do have an appropriate amount of services through California to meet the needs of the women in the prisons that they're being served, at least to the best we can. We're training as many women as we can. So what is OMCP? What is it? We talked to our previous a couple of Dr. Golding, I believe, mentioned the California model. And one of the elements of the California model is peer support. And peer support is a component that is embedded in the Occupational Mentor Certification program and has been for a very long time. I want to tell you how this works. So essentially, people who have a certain level of good behavior over the last couple years, okay, who had life sentences or continue to have life sentences. There's been lots of changes in California in terms of laws and how people are able to move and get out of prison. But when OMCP started, that wasn't the issue. The issue was there was way too many drugs in prison and there were way too many people in prison in California. So something needed to be done about it, right? And it's not just about creating a program that's addressing one population or this population. We need to address the drug problem because drugs are killing people in our country far more than anything else is, right? And that's happening in our prisons just as much. The problem is that the stigma associated with the incarcerated population is not enough people give a shit about that. I'm sorry for you. I am a sailor, so I swear like one sometimes. I apologize for that. So what happens is that, inevitably, we as an organization have a responsibility to go inside the institution and initiate a experience for our participants. So every year we have 7 cohorts that are layered into 7 California state prisons. That ranges from medium security to maximum security. And we've had these cohorts on each level of security in the yards at each one of these prisons. So this spans from the Bay Area down to Los Angeles. OMCP has been happening for about 15 years. Okay. What makes it unique is that it's not just education. Okay. So in order to become a drug and alcohol counselor, you have to get about 2 years worth of community college or close to there in a university. You have to do about a year worth of training and internship, and then you have to take an exam. Okay. The quality of that education in California is pretty good. At the UCs, it's pretty good. The pass rate on the exams about 75%. Okay. So what we did is 15 years ago, we came together with the state of California. My predecessor, Tom Gorham, and Dr. Davida Cody came together with the state of California and devised a pilot that would happen at Solano State Prison that eventually got turned into the movie called The 50. And the idea was to take 50 people from all over the prison and that have been there for a long time. And we who have been involved in prison systems know what that means. So these folks got the opportunity to become state certified addiction counselors. They didn't really know what that meant, but they know it was going to be a good thing. And so they signed up for it, and it changed everything. Okay? So what happened is those 50 men went through a process of treatment. They went through a process of what we define as the OMCP program, which is a relational educational therapeutic program that allows the education to be delivered by therapists and clinicians. So whatever treatment that they're receiving prior to becoming an addiction counselor, we continue that treatment through their education. Now think about that for a minute. When I became a therapist, I had 3 children and a lot of stress in my life. Okay, I still have those children, but they're a lot older. In order to become a good therapist, you have to figure out all the crap that you carry so that crap doesn't spill over into other people. In order for these men and women to become certified addiction counselors, they had to heal themselves. They had to go through that process. Okay. As a result, and as I'm so sorry, I forgot the first gentleman's name, just doing some amazing work. I came on a little bit in the middle of his presentation, but he referenced, just how important it is when men come together from opposing factions inside the prison system and realize the common goal. Okay. Now that process has a tremendous impact on the prison culture. And we've seen that in California happen at every single site. I've heard it from every single warden, from every single prison that we've had this program. That when OMCP is there, people are safer, period. They see it firsthand, okay? Now, the beautiful thing about this isn't so much what's happening in prison, okay? This is beautiful, and we see it, and it's going to continue to happen by the grace of God. We have a RFP that's coming out at the end of the year. This is a contract that we have with the state, and we apply for that contract and get it every 5 years, hopefully, and do a really good job at it. So our goal is to continue this. It isn't so much what they do inside. It actually is what they do inside. But after those 7 cohorts graduate, they are dispersed to the other prisons throughout California to help mentor other people. And so what that does is it creates an environment of healing that not only treats addiction, but helps support the men and women who might be seen as bad men, bad women, in a completely different light amongst their peers, amongst the correctional staff, and everyone involved. To date, thanks to the laws and changes in California that Dr. Golding is, I'm sure, spearheading and being involved in much of, there's been a lot of changes to the laws allowing some of these lifers to be released from prison. To date, we have released 500, or around that, approximately 500 OMCP graduates. We have less than 1% recidivism rate. Obviously, this isn't a research study this is data that we're pulling together over the last 15 years that's kind of fragmented. I did speak to the federal government about this about a year ago during a congressional hearing with my role with the National Association of Addiction Counselors, NADAC, and said the same thing to them, that inevitably we have a responsibility to not only address the drug crisis that we have in our prison systems, but we have a responsibility to the people that we punished for the war on drugs. And that responsibility is to give them something to do about it, to help other people out there in the community. Since then, the Academy of Hope was developed because what we realized that these men and women who are coming out of prison as addiction counselors were not going to recidivate. They were out to help others. They had been helping others for many years inside the institutions as counselors. The important thing and I want to throw this in there just we did a little study on our pass rate in comparison to the UCs. So we're at a 95% pass rate on the exam. So on the state certifying exam for drug and alcohol counselors, our incarcerated folks get a 95% pass rate, and our University of California students at UC Berkeley and UC San Diego have about a 75% pass rate. So what we're producing is the best counselors in California. Now, the problem that we have in a lot of cases is with 500 people coming out in California over the last 10 years, where do they go? Not every reentry environment is designed ideally. We know that, and they're not regulated. It's hard. It's hard to find places that people can go to. So we developed a model. The model is called the Hope Academy, or the Academy of Hope. That was based off a building that we dedicated to our predecessor, Tom Gorham, and our founder, Dr. Davida Cody. And inevitably, it is a therapeutic environment for people who are OMCP, who are Offender Mentor Certification Program graduates, which we have 500, or right around 500 who are out in the community, and over 500 who are certified inside the California prison system. They needed a safe place to transition, ground, and be able to go back into the community with a vocation without any interference from drugs and alcohol. And I hate the fact that I have to keep bringing this into the conversation because I feel like that's such an important piece of whether or not people are able to change or not. So we talk about this change, we talk about this movement, we talk about this happening, we talk about these programs. The drugs and alcohol can throw that off. They can throw people off. And that's the piece where we in California know that everybody they need that access inside treatment. And what we found is that people are a hell of a lot less likely to listen to me than they are their peer inside the institution who's gone through it. There's a lot that can happen with this. Over the course of the last couple years, there was a movie, and as Peg referenced, it's called The 50. It's on Amazon Prime. I've traveled the country over the last 2 years showcasing this with the film's director. Won a bunch of awards and hasn't really got a lot of national attention, but it's an independent film. And it talks about, it's about 2 hours long, and it talks about those first 50 gentlemen who received the service in Solano State Prison about 15 years ago. Well, all 50 of them are out. None of them are back. And all of them are either executive directors or master social workers or something else. So these are all people that, 20 years ago during the war on drugs, or 30 years ago during the war on drugs, we were all talking about being the most dangerous people in California. So to put in perspective, the magnitude of change that can occur here, okay? And Dr. Golding talked about this too, that essentially the parallels between combat veterans and our men and women inside the prison system is ridiculous. And what these men and women are doing under these conditions is finding the inner resilience to be able to shine, find the strength to change, not only change, but then as leaders on the other side of the prison system, they are able to influence change as well. And so that, as a result, creates a better and safer environment for everyone. And so what do we do moving forward? I've traveled across to a couple different states. Alaska and Ohio were very interested. Options Recovery Services is focused and based and prioritizes California. We got a lot to deal with here, but we're not opposed to, having conversations with other states, and we have around how to maybe start something like this in their state. Now, I know that once people see the movie, and I've seen this happen over the last year, it's immediate. It's kind of like, I want to see that. I want it in our state. How do we do that? How do we do this? Talk to your legislators. Everybody has congressmen, everybody has senators. The best way that you can do that, if you are interested in what we're talking about, and essentially being able to replicate in some way, the best way to do that is to talk to legislators about it, because a lot of people they know about it already, congressionally and at the state levels. And so if you're bringing it up as a citizen or as somebody who is familiar with it, then it will spark more interest legislatively. I believe I'm about 3 minutes down. So what I think, a couple of different statistics that I just want to cover is that, not statistics, but just parallels in what some of these people are doing and talking about hope. So I have a gentleman, and I'll just give you, Peg knows him. He spent 38 years inside the California prison system. Prior to that, he spent 3 years in Youth Authority, which was the children's California prison system. Immediately upon entering the California prison system, he was put into solitary confinement and then eventually put into a maximum security prison. Inevitably, he ended up in solitary confinement for 28 years. 28 years in Pelican Bay, which is a notorious prison inside of a prison. There were some laws that were passed that allowed those men who were in that prison inside of a prison with indefinite terms to be released. Those men and women decided, a lot of them decided that they wanted to do something different with their lives. One of those men decided to do something different and join OMCP when he was put into general population. As a result, he and others were able to navigate and formulate programs inside that institution that brokered peace, that brokered programming and positive healing interactions amongst each other. There was more participation in self-help groups. There was more participation in our program that we had there, in a program that they designed called Grow. They developed programs to allow inmates to author books from inside as a nonprofit, and started pumping out books about how to change criminal addictive thinking, how to address and make that change for each other on the inside. Fast forward, he's with us now at the Hope Academy. He's the program manager. He was released about 1.5 years ago. He was one of the first cases where the state of California took a gamble because of his history and all the good that he's done.
Justin, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do
Yes.
need to watch the time, please.
You got it. So with that, I think we have, do we need to open it up for questions?
Yes, sir.
Let's do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Justin. That was very informative. I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing. I know some of the smartest men and women are in prison. So I definitely understand why they're getting some of those numbers. Let's jump right into some questions and see what we have available, what we have waiting for you. Put your questions in the chat, everyone. And I see we put the website. It's
Yeah.
www.the5050film.com. So if you want to check the film out and support it, that's there. And then
And
we
then
have,
that's the name of our agency. I put that on there as well. So that references the program itself. And it's being updated. So if it looks a little outdated, it will be updated in the next couple months.
awesome. Here's a question. What is the barrier for OMCP being in all California prisons?
I think it varies, and I think it's funding. I think it comes down to there's so many great things that are happening in California inside the prisons, and they're really based on the culture of the prison themselves. And so I think that because there's so much variation in the prisons, California is very thoughtful in how and where they want to institute the program, largely because of, I don't know, probably lots of different factors, but I would love to have OMCP in all the prisons, but right now we're in 7 and we're happy with that. So I think that the more the better, but I think part of it has to do with just the existing culture and whether they think it'll be a good fit.
Okay. So is OMCP at Old Folsom as well?
No, no,
Oh, they're not. Okay. And how many prisons in California are they in?
7.
Um,
7. So we're in Solano State Prison. We're in Valley State Prison, which is in Chowchilla. We're in CCWF, which is the women's prison in Chowchilla. We're at CCI in Tehachapi. We're at CMC in San Luis Obispo. We're at LAC in Lancaster. And we're at Corcoran in Corcoran.
nice, nice. Wow. Thanks. I'm totally impressed by everything that you guys are doing. You're doing amazing work. I can't wait. I'll be visiting California soon, so I'll definitely hit you up and see how I can volunteer and support your mission and your cause, because it's changing some lives, man. I did street outreach before, and I know some of the things that made our program was effective. We had been there and done that, like you said. So
Right.
some of the greatest counselors are going to be the people that have overcome addiction. So again,
Yes.
thank you so much for everything that you do. And we really appreciate you, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.